here. So, okay, July 1st, Wednesday, July 1st. Club Leadership Education email went out from Greg's office, the district office, on Monday. And it identifies all the Club Leadership Education classes that we're going to hold the week of July 13th. Monday is presidents, Tuesday is secretaries, Wednesday is treasurers, Thursday is membership, and then Saturday the 18th, we're going to do all 4 of those sessions, president, secretary, treasurers, and membership. It went out to all the club, all the members, correct, Greg?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The big thing to know is that when they register for the session, and I've answered a few emails, is that it may say presidents and it says like July 13th, 4:36, and then Saturday at whatever time it is. They need to register for that. All 4 times are listed on there, and I did that so that if someone can only hit, the one session for half an hour and they have to come back and do the other one, they don't have to have another link. So once they sign up, it doesn't matter what session they attend, they just need to sign up in general. So it may, because people are saying, well, but there's my time, I can't register my time. By registering for the president's, with the president's link, you are registering to attend all 4 sessions, even though you only need to attend 1. That way, the other thing that prevents is if someone, were to say, hey, I can't go now, can I sign up for another session? You just go to that same link. So that's set up for president, secretaries, treasurers, and membership. And when I was on there earlier today, there are about 11 or 12 people registered for each session right now. So I thought that was pretty good considering we just rolled it out. So I would strongly encourage you to connect with your incoming officers. It is open to anybody, even if they're not the president or not a secretary, or not a treasurer, or not a membership person. They can go to any session. There's no concerns about it. They just log in or register. They will get an automatic confirmation. So as soon as they log in, they'll get an automatic confirmation. It does say at the top of the form, you only need to register for once. This is good for everything. You need to fulfill this obligation to be there. But they don't need to register. They just need to register once for basically for the office or the role. So
if they want to register for all 4 of them, they need to register 4 times?
Correct.
Because some of the lieutenant governors might want to sit in on those.
Correct.
So they may want to register for those.
So the committee that's working on those is putting everything together. They will be done by the end of next week. We're working on to get all that stuff together. So they look great. I will tell you that the committee has done a great job pulling things together. So you'll be happy to see it. There's a little bit of KI stuff on it, but it's really focused on Michigan. And their setup is meetings so that people can, their setup is webinars so that we can do the discussion like KI did. And then we can open it up for questions and answers. So, and we will record them for people that are unable to attend. So that information went out on Monday. If anybody has any question, they can email me and we'll respond back to them. As a reminder, we are now only meeting on Wednesday nights. So your Sundays are free. We're not gonna interrupt your 4th of July weekend, even though it's gonna be like 100 degrees outside, so you might rather want to be inside. But those are set up and ready to go. And then I am working on district convention workshops. So in the next newsletter, if you would just watch, and if you know any district chairs, we may be reaching out to some of you for district convention workshops. So with that, I will turn it over to Fran to see if she has any announcements.
Yep, I do. Okay, a lot of you asked me what do I expect out of you during the year, and I'm going to work on writing a little guidelines on that, and then we can go over it together and decide what you like and what you don't think we need to, if it's too much or if it's too little, and we'll go through that. Also, I'm really thinking about pushing a contest for service projects, and I'd like you to think about that on how we can increase new service projects or ideas you might have. And if you'd want to do a contest by clubs or by divisions, we'll discuss that. And then the final thing, hopefully, and I don't know if it's going to work, you've been talking about let's getting together. I was thinking about the Saturday we have the convention, which is August 22nd, I think is when we're all installed. I'd like to have everybody over to my house afterwards for a barbecue or something like that on that evening. So first of all, you got to check to see if you're available August 22nd, and then we got to wait and see if we can do it. With the COVID, we got to see if we're going to be able to do that. But that's what I was thinking. Then we could give you your pins and your name tags and stuff like that that evening. So look at that and get back with me on your thoughts. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
With that, I will turn it over to Larry and his team for membership.
Hey, you gonna bring the screen up or? Okay. What I talked about just previously for a minute was about the, I've been saying all along that opening a new club is not top priority as far as I'm concerned, because we're gonna have to really work on our existing clubs and membership, but there's still gonna be a push on existing opening clubs, but my feeling is, after talking yesterday, is that I think we won't even try to do much with new clubs until probably the second half of from next year. Doesn't mean if a club comes up someplace that we can go after, then we'll do that. But again, I just think we need to pay more attention to our existing clubs and what we can do to strengthen them and increase membership. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, who's going to do the first half about how to strengthen your club. And then Cindy will finish up at the end with a little bit about doing the boosts. So, go ahead, Bruce.
So I will ask.
You want to go to the first slide?
Yep, I will ask if you're not speaking to turn off to mute yourself. So we don't have any background noise, and if you want to turn off your video, that's fine as well. So Bruce, I'm going to the first slide.
Okay. We're going to talk this evening about strengthening your Kiwanis Club, some points that I'd like to make. Start with a statement. Keeping our Kiwanis Club strong and members committed is the best way to ensure a better future for kids and Kiwanis alike. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that. Back up just a minute, please. Well, all right. Let me make a comment about the keeping our clubs. As Larry just intimated, my feeling is that the impact of the COVID-19 is going to be significant, both on the economy, but also on our club. So it may have to be revised to say regaining or making our clubs strong and then keeping them as we go forward. Okay, now if you would change to the next slide. In summary, the bottom line is a strong club is one that meets the needs of its community while meeting the needs and expectations of its members, and is recognized by both constituencies as doing it. It's that simple. So we serve two masters, if you will. First and most importantly, our communities, and secondly, the members of our club. If we can satisfy both of them, we have a strong and vibrant club. Okay, next. Next slide. A little bit about myself. I am a member of the Kiwanis Club here in Midland, and also the Tuscola County Club in Caro. I served as the Lieutenant Governor for two terms of Division 19, and also past President of the Kiwanis Club. When I became a Lieutenant Governor, it became clear to me that the role was different. You know, as the president of a club of 80 people with a strong leadership team and a board, I could get things done. I could direct things, but as a lieutenant governor, that wasn't as easy. So we share a common objective, we meaning the club presidents, club membership chairs, and the lieutenant governor, and that common directive is to strengthen the clubs and its members and grow the clubs. Next slide. Sue. So what's different? And the difference is the role we play. As a lieutenant governor, your role is most of you already know, is much less direct. It's to suggest, to inspire, to motivate, to be a cheerleader, to monitor progress and so forth. It's not as directly hands-on. And the role of the president and membership chair is to implement and manage the results. So how do you do that? And I remember someone told me when I first became lieutenant governor, you're going to find it's a bit different being there. Your success will depend on your ability to build trust, to establish rapport, to instill confidence and credibility, to participate hands in glove with your clubs, and most importantly, your ability to communicate effectively. Next slide. So why should we strengthen clubs? Well, that seems like a no-brainer. A strong club attracts new members, and we need to attract new members. A strong club is able to make a bigger community impact. A strong club is better able to overcome temporary quote-unquote problems like the coronavirus. Speaking of a bigger impact, I saw just this last week, someone sent me a YouTube video, and some of you may have seen it. Not a lot of talking in it, but it shows a large barn, like a pole barn, 70 feet long and 40 feet across. And as you look at it, you see a number of what appear to be Amish men entering into the barn. Suddenly, the barn lifts up and begins to move across the prairie. It turns about 30 degrees and then actually moves maybe as much as 100 yards before it's set back down. How did they do it? With 300 individuals to make it happen. So obviously, the bigger the challenge, i.e. moving barns, the more strength we need. So my sense is that going forward, the need for problem solving is going to be, if anything, greater than it's been in the past. And in order to do that, we need to have a strong club and a bigger club to increase our community impact. So one of the things also, I think you as lieutenant governors, back up just a second, thanks, Sue. One of the things you're going to encounter, at least I encountered it in my first year as lieutenant governor, is some of the attitudes that exist within our clubs. All our clubs are terrific. They all have terrific members, but I did encounter some people who said, yeah, why do we need new members? Why do we have to add? Why do we have to grow? I like it the way it is. I've got my table and my set of friends, and I get there 6 minutes or 10 minutes early, and we have a good time. I'm not sure I want new people in the club. So as lieutenant governors, you need to find strategies to overcome this attitude. In my opinion, a strong club is one that has leaders, doers, and mentors, and we'll talk more about that later. A role for everybody. Okay, Sue. Characteristics of a strong club. Well, some of the indices that I use, at least, is high attendance at club meetings. Another one is high participation. Those kind of go hand in glove in club activities, and maintains or increases membership. I've been to a lot of clubs, and again, I've been blessed to work with a lot of terrific clubs. But I've been with a lot of clubs where there's a core of 8 or 10 people who show up. They do all the work, and yet on the books we show more than twice that many as membership. So it's not really a strong club, and it's a recipe for burnout. So high attendance, high participation, and increasing membership. I think Greg told me at one time that given normal turnover, we need about 10% increase every year just to maintain the status quo. The last point, being recognized in the community or making a difference. Sometimes I'll call it go mad. I live in Midland, and Midland's the home of Northwood University. Northwood every year at the start of the school year has a go mad day. Now, it's not asking students to run around town and make fools of themselves. MAD is merely an acronym for making a difference. And Northwood insists as part of their freshman orientation that the incoming students spend one day giving back to the community. It's the day, incidentally, where the Circle K puts on their Kids Against Hunger program, and all of the athletes spend one day in the community doing public service. So Making a difference is significant in a strong club. And if you're not making a difference, in my opinion, you're not really that strong a club. Okay, next slide. I call this kind of my undercover boss concept. Pose the question to your clubs. If an uninvited guest just wandered into one of your club meetings, or one of their club meetings, if you will, would he or she feel welcome? Would it be evident to that person after staying for the meeting that this was a service club as opposed to just another social organization? Would he or she be likely to return? And bottom line, would he or she be inclined to join? And I think you pose that to your club leadership and say, if in fact the answer is no to any of these, then why not? Find out what the problem is and solve it. I started preaching this soon after I joined Kiwanis. I was volunteering in a program called Santa Calling. It's done here in Midland around Christmas time, where you make phone calls to children who and pretend to be Santa Claus. You know, I've got bells, and that year that I did this, I had actually a Mrs. Claus who helped make the calls, and it's a good program. It gets a little bit tough. One of my first ones I got with was a young boy whose father had just been killed in Iraq, and that was tough. But nonetheless, I did it. And at the end of the day or the evening of making dozens and dozens of calls, and I was walking out of the building, I met another Santa, and he said, who are you? I'm so-and-so. And he said, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm a member of Kiwanis, and as a Kiwanian, I love to contribute. I'd love to give back to the community. He says, Kiwanis, huh? I'd never join Kiwanis. I stood back and I said, why not? He was and continues to be the manager of the municipal golf course here in Midland, but he was talking about a previous assignment in another town where he did, in fact, walk into a Kiwanis club. And as he described it, there were 3 large round tables. He said, I came right from work, and as a golf club manager, I don't wear a coat and tie. And I walked in, and the first table was a bunch of young people. He said they were all talking amongst themselves, and half of them were on their phones, texting and whatever, and they hardly even looked up. He said the next table was in my opinion, were a bunch of a business type. They looked up, but then they kind of looked down their nose at me since I wasn't really dressed like they were. And the last table was all old guys. And he said, I didn't feel welcome. No one pulled a chair back and said, come join us. He didn't join. He also said the meeting was pretty boring as well. So I think it's really important that we look at our clubs from that perspective. If we're doing any of these things, we need to change. Some of the things that we did, I introduced a greeter concept. At church I attend, we have a greeter. And now several of my clubs have greeters that say, hey, Larry, how are you? How was your week this week? How's it going? Or Linda, what are you up to? Some people say, well, that's crazy. Everybody knows everybody, but you missed the point. The greeter, 1, makes you feel welcome and important. And number 2, the greeter is the one that sees that unintended or uninvited, if you will, guest, as well as any speakers when they come in. The job of the greeter then is to greet that individual, take them into the meeting room and introduce them to as many people as possible, and then see that they're seated comfortably in a welcoming environment. It works, and it's really faithfully being. We're doing it. My home club even does it as we meet virtually over Zoom every Tuesday afternoon. We have a greeter. Has to get on early and welcome everybody as they join the program. Other things, of course, that I talked about after meeting the Santa was we needed to make sure all of our clubs had speakers and programs so that there really was something to get out of the meeting. And last but certainly not least, we introduced a program where when someone attends the meeting, there's a follow-up in the form of a thank you note. Thank you, Linda, for joining this week. We really enjoyed having you with us. Here enclosed is some literature about Kiwanis. We'd love to have you come back and see us in the future. And if you don't mind, I'll be giving you a call. And so those are things that all came from this Santa who wasn't welcomed as as an uninvited guest, attended one of our clubs somewhere here in Michigan, but I've not yet been able to determine where. Okay, next slide. So, okay. This is kind of bullet point stuff, and I apologize for it being so busy, but achieving and maintaining high member attendance and participation. Number one, make sure your meeting meets the needs and expectations of your members. And if you don't know, find out. Do surveys. KI through Kiwanis.org has an excellent survey to ask your members whether or not their needs are being met, whether they're being satisfied as a result of their membership. Introduce fun. You know, fun is an important part of an ingredient. It shouldn't be the only. I had a club, I know of a club that was failing. And so they had money in the bank. They had quite a bit of money in the bank. So they said, let's stop all of this stuff about having to go out and raise money and do projects. Let's, for the next year, just have fun. They did, and they folded. They found that people wouldn't join an organization just for fun. They were getting comments like, if I want fun, I'll stay home with my family. Or if I want fun, I'll go to Oscar's Grill and have something to drink with my friends. So fun is important, but it's certainly not the panacea as far as strengthening your club. Schedule family events. And again, some clubs are doing this now. Your members are taking, many cases, they're taking time away from their families to be a part of Kiwanis. Pay them back. Have picnics, have carnivals, have events where you can bring not only the significant other, but the kids and get them thinking in terms of community service as well in the process. Schedule regular and meaningful hands-on events. I had a club president tell me he couldn't recruit anybody to join the club, but if he had a work project, he could get a dozen people who would volunteer. That tells you something. And it was, in his case, it was related to the format of the meeting. But people will, in fact, give back to the community if they can do hands-on. Particularly young people, I'm finding, don't like to sit in meetings, don't like to sit, don't get the kick of the camaraderie that we seasoned veterans do, but they still want to do hands-on work. So make sure you have some. Keep track of attendance and reach out to those who are not attending regularly. You send a note, say, Sue, I noticed you've not been here the last 2 weeks. Hope there's nothing wrong. Is there anything we can do? We miss you. And last but certainly not least, make sure that there's a role for everybody in your club, whether you're talking about the brand new member or the person that just finished their 40th year. Okay, next slide, Sue. More about maintaining and growing your membership. I think the operational word is be flexible, particularly today. Be flexible in your meeting format, and that means time, place, content, agenda, etc., to meet the diverse needs of people. People have different needs based on their marital status, by their work schedule, by their financial situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's our job as lieutenant governors to work with our clubs to make sure that the clubs are willing to adjust, quote unquote, to be flexible, quote unquote, to meet those needs. Sometimes that's painful because we get set in our way, but being flexible to meet the needs of new members, I think, is critical. Next, empower members and recognize their contribution. That's a no-brainer. Put them to work. New members need to feel not only appreciated, but they need to feel that they're contributing. Maybe you can't make them head of a committee the first month in the club, but you can certainly assign them to work as an assistant to your senior youth committee or whatever, where they're getting their feet wet and feeling important. And last but not least, the word that we are over and over and over again invite. There's not a person in this meeting tonight that joined Kiwanis unless he or she was invited. So, and that includes me. So invite, invite, invite. Okay, next slide, Sue. Use the resources. I'm not going to bore you tonight by going over the myriad details of all the resources that are available, but suffice it to say, if you go to Kiwanis.org, there are all kinds of tools. There is a wonderful device for measuring member satisfaction. There are things for 10-member retention tips, fact sheets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No use, don't bother with reinventing the wheel. Use the resources that are available to all of us through KI. They're good, they really are. Okay, next slide. Staying focused and relevant. Many of our clubs, all of our clubs make contributions of some degree. I think all our clubs are pretty darn good. Some of our clubs are still solving a problem that was paramount in the community 12 years ago, but is no longer that important today. And in doing that, they may be overlooking opportunities to address new problems. So I encourage people to invite community leaders and invite them in to talk and learn from them what the unmet needs are, especially those needs of children. And of course, explore ways to meeting those. One of the clubs that I worked with had what they called a listening session. They invited the superintendent of schools, the county sheriff, the judge of the juvenile court, and the head of a executive director of a nonprofit that focused on junior youth aged kids. And their job was, or their program was, a panel discussion on what are the issues of today that we see really are problems for our youth. That particular club also invited the public to attend. They asked the presenters if it was okay, and they had quite a few members of the public, non-club members, attend that session, and as a result, 3 of them joined the club, because at the end of the session, the statement was made: we hear you, we now see what the issues are in our community, and we are committed to do what we can to try and solve them. And then the president turned to the non-members who were in the audience and said, we invite you to join us in this endeavor. And 3 of them did. So staying focused, I think, is important. It's a way of staying relevant. And relevant, of course, is that we're solving the right problems that are besieging our communities now. Okay, next slide. Being recognized, that one's tough for me for a couple of reasons. When I was club president, I tried to install a program that said our objective should be to make Kiwanis the, emphasis on the word the, service club of choice in Midland. And several of my members pushed back and said, oh, that's bragging. We don't want to do that. You know, we're good, but we don't have to brag about being good. And you know, I can see a little bit of that, but quite frankly, particularly with younger professionals today, if they don't hear about you on social media, they're not going to hear about you. So we have to brag a little bit. And we have to use social media to do that. We need web pages, and we need Facebook and LinkedIn and so forth. What I have found in several of the clubs that I've worked with is there was a reluctance to do that, primarily because of uneasiness with the technology. I have to admit, I often have to call my granddaughter and my grandson to solve some of that stuff. So what we came up with is a couple of the clubs that were reluctant to really go with social media were also sponsors of SOPs. One of them had a Circle K club. The other one had a key club and a very vibrant key club. Reach out to them. Those kids do it in their sleep. And they did, and it worked. The SLP actually set it up as they do things and they get credit for National Honor Society. They set it up as an activity that not only helped the clubs, but it also helped them in their preparation for college. So use social media, cultivate a relationship with the local press to the extent that the local press still exists, and with civic leaders. Build the brand, and we've talked, there's a lot of talk about that. What do I mean by the civic leaders? If the city manager or the superintendent of schools and the superintendent of schools or the police chief know that your club, Club X, Club Y, is really making a difference in the community, she or he is going to pass that word around. And we need the word to be around because we are competing for members. And people want to join a winning organization. So use social media, get the word out to your community leaders. Better yet, ask the community leaders to be a part of your club. But most importantly, the bottom line is be sure that in fact you are making a difference in your community. Okay, Sue, one more. Okay, that's the bottom line that I introduced at the beginning, but let me say it again. As a successful club, in my opinion, you serve two masters. The first one is the community, and that's the most important one. And the other master is your members. If you serve successfully one and fail with the other, that's not a formula for success. Serving them both is the only way forward. Thank you for listening. I'd be glad to entertain any questions. Hi, Frank.
Okay, let's, Sue, why don't you move on to the next one?
All right.
Okay, okay, Cindy, you can go ahead now.
All right. I'm Cindy Padilla, and I'm on the membership team, and my specialty, or where my heart is boosting membership in the existing clubs. So there are essentially 6 things that we're going to accomplish when you do a boost. You make a plan, you set a goal for that plan, and you basically have to have some idea of what it is that you want to accomplish. So you're going to figure out, how can I get there? You set up a planning committee, and those should be members from the club itself. And then your committee is going to help set up the steps to get through the boost. And after the boost is all over, you're going to make sure that you are coaching your new members and following through with everything that happened on the boost, because increasing membership is a continual process. It just starts over and over and over again. Next slide. Okay, this is a basic flow chart of what happens, but as you can notice, there are 3 basic levels, and you must complete all of one level before you can go to the next and do a good job at the next level. So I just wanted to show it in flow chart form. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, these are the 3 basic phases or levels that were on the prior sheets. Just a little easier to see here. I'm going to go through each one of these. Okay, so go ahead to the next slide. Level 1 is the plan, and what you're really saying is, how well do you know your community, and what your community, how well do you know the community that you're servicing? And this might be more than one community. You might say that you're sitting in the middle of a city, but maybe there's a bunch of townships all around you that you're servicing those too. So when you do this membership boost, you're going to include the entire area that you want to service, not just one little portion of it. The first step to the plan is doing demographics. You can go to the city, state, county level, and you can go and Google, for example, my club in Flint. I would go in and I would Google demographics of the city of Flint and surrounding area. And the state would pull up all this information. I mean, it would be everything from religion, income level, education level, average housing. The history is all there. Make sure you read that too, because history is very important to clubs that have been in an area for a long time. And you need to know what that history is so that you don't upset anybody's apple cart along the way by saying something you shouldn't. But basically everything you're going to want to know about the community you're in or the community you're servicing is in the demographics portion. And you should get that information down and make sure that all your membership knows about the demographics in that area. You're then going to do what's called a community assessment. You need to know what are the needs of this particular community, the entire area that you want to service. Without knowing what the needs are, you don't know what service projects you need to be doing. And you also, at the next step here, step 3, you're going to look at the existing services that are already out there. You don't need to repeat or duplicate something that somebody else is already doing. You might want to go ahead and share in it, but if you're looking for a signature project and you're looking for some way to brand your club in an area, you're going to do something that everyone remembers all about the picnic that this club does every year that helps children do something. So you're going to be looking at the existing clubs as well and what they're up to. Next slide. Okay, so now that you have figured out what it is that is going on in the community that you're in, and you've got some basic ideas of what the history is, now you're going to look to where can I go looking for new members. First place to look is always at the Chamber of Commerce. If there's a local one that you can get to in your area, that's where you should go. You should physically go visit it if you can, because if you can at all, go in the door and make an appointment to talk to somebody that deals with membership. You would need to know a little bit about membership in the Chamber of Commerce, because if you're not a member of that Chamber of Commerce, you probably should be. And so you should go ahead and talk. At the same time, while you're in there, pick up all the paperwork, letters, magazines, anything you can find in the area, because that's all going to be vital information for you to find contacts in as well. When you go down, if you can't go to the Chamber of Commerce physically, then you're going to go online and you look for Chambers of Commerce for whatever area that you're in. And in there, you can usually pull down off their membership list all the members from the Chamber of Commerce, and the information there is unbelievable. It will give you from when the business started to the owner, addresses, emails, a lot about the company, all stuff where you can decide whether this is somebody you want to approach or not. It's not unusual when we did a blitz and we would use this same plan. Not unusual for me to find in a small town like, well, even what did we do? We did Grosse Pointe. We had over 400, and we just stopped looking at that point, just from the Chamber of Commerce. Then you're going to go to those directories. You're going to walk around a little bit. You can pick up newspapers and in the libraries, usually sometimes in the city hall, all these different directories and newspapers that give you also who is in town. The advertisements in those newspapers quite often tell you who the businesses are that have enough money to at least advertise. They sometimes tell you a little bit about the business and what they're into right then. Sometimes they'll even tell you what nonprofits they support. So don't be afraid to look through all of that. These are all sources for new members. And then of course, don't forget to ask your own club. There may be all kinds of leads in your own club that people who know somebody that would probably be a great fit, but they're not the kind of person that would ask. So they've never bothered to recruit them. Doesn't hurt to ask them now to give you that name or that reference, and put those people on your list to go looking for as well. Okay, change next screen. So now you need to plan your boost. You've already done your demographics and figured out what your community is all about. Then you've gone in and you've acquired a whole slew of names. Now you need to decide, are we going to go ahead and go there and do this? If your club is on board with this, then you now need to commit to a plan. Pick a date or date range to do this boost in. I have 6 to 8 weeks on this screen. Sometimes I'm feeling like 8 for most is probably the bare minimum, because it depends on how much time and energy you have on your team to put for this. If you only have a few people working on your team because you have a smaller club, it might take you 12 weeks to get there. But in order to be successful, you need to complete each stage of the boost plan. Once you've got the date range out there, now you want to look at basic public relations. Kiwanis International has spent a lot of time and money branding what Kiwanis is all about. And they have resources at Kiwanis.org, just like Bruce just mentioned. And if you go through their section called Online Branding Resources, there's unbelievable amount of information on how to advertise your club. You're going to need this information because as you go out and talk to people and as you plan for everything, you're going to have to tell your story. And in order to tell your story, you should probably have something to go by to put yourself together for a pamphlet to advertise your club. And as in the last step here with the open house, you're going to also have to plan the open house. So you're going to need to have a history and all kinds of things to put out there, and you're going to need a little bit more information. So don't be afraid to use Kiwanis.org and go into their literature, their templates, and all that kind of thing for open houses. Now, when it comes to the open house, we have another thing going on right now, and that's that COVID-19's kind of played a little bit of thrown us a little bit for a loop here. I know some people are still nervous about getting out there and meeting on a physical basis. So you need to use your imagination here. You could, and I have actually talked to a member of a club where they are doing some of their open houses as a virtual open house. Maybe they're going to do a go-to stage or a Zoom meeting and they can even go that way. Or just take it outside. Look at a park. Look at the outside area of a restaurant if people want to be a little bit more distance. But don't be afraid to think outside the box when it comes to how you want to hold that open house. Because you don't want it to stop you from doing a boost just because right now times are a little bit scary, because there's ways to get around that. Slide. Club analysis. Okay, you've already done one on the community. Now you need to do one on your club, because how can you know whether you reflect that community if you don't even know what the demographics of your own club are? So look through your roster and do a little bit of a demographics the same way you did there. How well do you match up what's going on in the community? If everyone from your club lives in one portion of the community you serve and nobody lives or knows anything about the other community, you're probably not servicing that other portion of the community, and you should be looking there too. So the best way to encompass the entire area you want to do service for is to include members from the full spectrum of the demographics of the community you wish to serve. You can also, at that point, you can determine, well, who do we need? So that's the little game of the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Do you have a librarian? Do you have a banker? Do you have teachers? Is any of the community or municipality, fire department, police department, are any of those people in there? If they're not, you need to go looking for those people as well. So, and you may have some of them in your club already, but what you need to do is make sure that you've covered every spectrum of where you would get the information you need to do and service what your club has determined to be their mission. Next slide. Okay, ready, set, go. We have now got the demographics and we know what we're going for. We have a list of people. We have an idea of when we're going to have it. We have some idea of how we're going to do an open house. So now let's get down to actually doing some training in here. Know that when this happens, you're not on your own. Training is something that's what we're here for. We're to help you get through these steps. So you're going to have a team of appointment callers. These are people that are going to call or contact the businesses or individuals and set up a time to actually talk to them about what it is to be a Kiwanis member. Tell us what the club is doing in the area and what service they provide. They're going to basically tell these people what we're up to and why we'd like them to join. They will be able to answer some questions at the time. Anything you do at this appointment calling session needs to be tracked. Whether you're using Google Sheets, an Excel spreadsheet, doesn't matter whatever you're doing, you have such a massive amount of information you're going to collect that you need to be good at it, because otherwise you are going to go back later and say, oh, I talked to so-and-so, but I can't remember their name and I don't know the phone number and when was it we were supposed to meet. It doesn't look good when you're trying to get new members if you look unorganized. So you have to have a team of people who are trained to track all the information that you have gathered as you go through. You're also going to need, in order to do your boost, you're going to need those people that are going to hit the road. They will also not be on their own. Nobody out here is completely on their own. They'll be trained. And we usually do teams of 2. There will be somebody from the club that needs to be out there, because though I can go talk to anybody about anything, when they start asking individual questions about the club and what that club does or how the club does this or that, I can't be up on all of that too, and neither can anyone else. So we need the club member there who can explain what the club is doing and what the club's projects are, because those kind of questions are going to come up. So you have basically those three teams. Next slide. Okay, club information. Your club image is everything in the community. If you don't have an image, then you're probably an invisible club. So one of the first things you need to do is collect enough information about the history of your club and what it's currently doing. You're going to go all the way back to the very beginning. Say, when we first were organized 86 years ago, we did this, and then we had these service projects over the year, and now we're doing this, and we're changing and adjusting to the times. They need to know that you're not stuck where you were, because nothing has changed more than the last year in my mind of what we are servicing and what our needs are, what the community's needs are. So you are going to get that information all together, and there's a place, like I said, when you go to Kiwanis.org, there's places where you can put that information into a pamphlet or template to tell the history of your club that you can hand out to people. You also use that same template to put your invitation to your open house out there. However you choose to invite them, it might be mailings, it could be radio, it could be Facebook, it could be flyers that you're leaving at different establishments. There's all kinds of ways to advertise when your open house is going to be. And so, like I said, go use the resources that are available through Kiwanis to use the templates to put your open house invitation together and to do your advertising. Next page. Okay. Now, we are all ready to go. We've done the training. We've agreed to everything. We have our teams organized. Now it's time to get out there and set up some appointments. So with that in mind, who's going to do the appointments? And you need to know on that team how many, let's say you have 400 people that you've decided to contact, and you've got 6 people making calls. You need to have each person assigned to how many calls they're going to make, and you need to have a deadline time to get those calls all made, or at least an attempt to get all of them made. And the reason you want to assign it is you don't want people calling the same person over and over and over again because they just decided, oh, I like that one, I'm going to call that one. You need to assign those appointment callers to a specific call. We will train you on how to do the calling, and we will walk you through everything that needs to be done. The kind of questions that will come up. We have all kinds of literature on, and even scripts to follow on that kind of thing. We will also train them on how to keep the records. Once you make the call, you need to be able to make an appointment, and you need to keep that up to date on the sheet. For example, let's say that you have 8 people hitting the road on the day you're doing the boost. You want to make sure that you don't have, you've got teams, you got 8 people, 4 teams. You want to make sure you don't have 5 appointments at the same time, because somebody's not going to get hit, or that the appointments are not so close together that you can't get to all of them. So that's why you're keeping your sheets up as you go, not waiting till the last minute to do it. Your boost participants, you need to know who it is that's going to hit the road, and who their team going to be teamed up with on each of the days. So this is another organizational thing that has to be decided before you actually go out. Next. Okay. Boots on the ground. So your team's all assembled and the appointments had all been made, and now you are hitting the road, going out there and talking to people, or maybe you're talking on the phone, or whatever it is you've decided to do as far as you're actually going out there and talking to people. You're paired up with a trainer, and someone for the club is riding with each one of the calls. 2 is usually enough. Sometimes we've had to take 3 out when we've done a blitz, but basically more than 2 and the person will feel a little bit outnumbered. So generally 2 in the room is a good idea. Do a lot of listening. Please remember when you're in there that you really should be able to get this done in 15, 20 minutes max. One of the reasons I have cold calls in here is you may have a call at 10 o'clock and you may not have another appointment till 2, just the way it works out. But if you happen to be in the neighborhood and you see a business that's either not on the list and you think that's a good idea, or it was referred to by another person that you talk to, you need to be able to walk in there and do a cold call and make sure that you're carrying enough information with you to drop off pamphlets and supplies to that person should they ask. So that's the cold call, and we'll teach you how to do that as well. Document everything you're doing, everywhere you've been. As soon as you have an appointment, it needs to go on a sheet. Every single one of the boost people can see, so they don't go visit the same one again just because they're next door to it. Okay, next. So your open house, this is their meet and greet time. Back 8 to 12 weeks ago, you set some dates out there. Your club needs to know about those dates, and they need to reserve those dates. Doesn't all come down to hit the road and then you have an open house and 3 people show up from the club and you got 20 people that just walked in the door. There is absolutely no way you're going to have those members feel like anything more than an uninvited guest. Every time they get in the door, somebody needs to be greeting them at the door, welcoming them, putting where they can get answered, sit them down with somebody they can ask questions with and feel comfortable with and feel welcome with. So you need to have club attendance at this thing, and it needs to be crucial. If your club is on board with this, they should not have a problem there. RSVPs. When you go out and you talk to people or you do mailers out to people for this event, you need a head count. Hopefully you will get enough information to have some idea how many people are going to attend, because if you're serving food or drinks of any kind, you need supplies. You need supplies for the paperwork, brochures, and that kind of thing. And you also need to make sure that your venue can handle the number of people that would show up. So that RSVP is extremely important. Your meeting plan needs a speaker. That speaker needs to be able to talk about Kiwanis and its service projects. That speaker needs to be able to explain the different types of membership, answer basic questions. And there needs to be an agenda. You can't just walk in the door and people just pop up as they want to talk. It needs to be an agenda, and people need to know about how long they're going to be expected to be there. And basically, it just needs to be a plan, just like it's a regular meeting, only you're having a little bit more fun at this one and you're opening the floor for questions. Make sure you order your supplies for this event way in advance, because things run really, really short. And please make sure you have plenty of applications. And if you can, some kind of business card or something where they have some way of getting a hold of you or someone to talk to should they have any other questions. Literature like service leadership programs and that kind of thing, all that on tables for people to grab. Do not think just because you have 20 people that have said they're going to come that there won't be 40 there, and that some of those people won't take more than one brochure with them. So make sure you have plenty of supplies out there. Okay, now next slide. This is your follow-up. You just had.
And then you need to, you need to move along. I think we're about out of time, so.
Okay, all I'm saying is make sure that when you have that application, you need to follow up and make sure you're going to get the money on this thing. Don't forget that you're going to greet these people when they show up. You're going to make them feel welcome. You're going to follow up, just like Bruce said. Happy member is an active member, and a happy guest is a potential member. That's all I got to say. So keep smiling. Then.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. It's great information.
Thank you.
It's not an easy thing to do, but we've been very successful the last few years doing boosts to help clubs, particularly ones that are struggling. So that's the stuff for this week. I just want to add a couple things that more informational than anything that is scary. As of this morning, we have our plus membership is 84, which is I don't know how much of that has had the clubs that we know of that are going to not agree. Maybe Greg can tell me if those have been in the numbers yet or not, but that's a number that's really scary, which means it's going to be a real fight to the end. So I would just also remind you that we have this program out there to invite new members, and your dues are paid for this year and for next year for the first 150, and I think we're somewhere around 40 or 50 at this point. We actually only added 32 new members in June. So
okay.
it's scary. So membership's got to be on our top of our list of what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to give you the tools to be able to do that so that we can get with our clubs and start to promote it. So that's about it. Next week, we're going to talk about coaching, and then a little bit about what we do to open a new club. We'll touch on that next week, but primarily it will be on coaching next week. So that's all I have, Sue.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Cindy and Bruce, thank you. Great job. That's a lot of information to cover in a short period of time. So thank you. We will make sure that these recording gets put up on our system and then the PowerPoint as well, so that everybody has access to all of that to make sure that you have what you need. And I highly recommend that you reach out to Bruce and Cindy specifically on these two areas if you need some guidance. They can, you know, go through it. If you need a little bit more breakdown from them on either one of them, they can do that for you. So,
Sue,
yes.
this is Linda. Just a sort of a commercial for next week on the coaching. If the coaching information will show how all of this gets pulled together in aiding and assisting the clubs. So that'll be a piece that'll be helpful for pulling all these other segments together.
Perfect. Perfect. Mr. Gregg,
Miss Sue.
any comments?
Nope, all good, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Hey, Greg, I do real quickly. When will we be receiving the listing of all the clubs, secretaries, presidents?
You're talking
How
about
we get the booklet?
Yeah,
October.
it's usually October, and it could be even sooner if we get all the as many election reports in as possible.
Okay. Thanks.
But usually it comes out right at the beginning of October.
Okay.
Okay.
This is Tracy.
Go
I
ahead,
just wanted to
Tracy.
say, I was just going to say thank you so much for getting on our Zoom call for our club meeting last week on Thursday.
Oh, great.
Really good information you shared and very appreciative. So thank you very much.
Thanks. You know, there's a lot of people on this call that can help get on calls for everybody. So please, you know, reach out and help anybody that needs it.
Well, I was going to say, I have a quick request from any of the lieutenant governors that are out there. If you have clubs that have Zoom meetings, if you can send me that information, because I've only received from one particular district anything about when the Zooms are. And I would love to sit in on some of these meetings just so I can hear what's going on. It helps me get a better idea of what's going on with some of the clubs.
I can do that if you're interested in Division 16, because our
That's
club
great.
meetings are our Zoom calls are Thursdays at noon, like 12:05.
So yeah, if
Send
you,
how to get into them or, you know,
Yeah, I can forward you the information.
all right. Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Cindy, speaking from Kiwanis, we meet at Tuesday at noon. We had, I think, 51 members in Zoom yesterday, so you're welcome to join us.
That'd be wonderful. Since my husband has a remote control, I might as well be on the computer attending.
a reminder about Thursdays, tomorrow evening's Kiwanis Let's Talk. Denise Browning is going to do a session on cybersecurity,
Oh, wonderful.
which should be good. Cybersecurity, you and your family. The week after, we have Monica. Monica is coming in to do a session on global etiquette in a virtual world, as we're all sitting on virtual calls all the time, but how to have global etiquette.
Wait, wait, back. I'm on the Zoom meeting. I'm about to shut down.
And then we have Kim Schroff is coming in the week after to talk about running. The Ormond, Florida Kiwanis Club that won the Signature Award contest is coming in on the 23rd to talk about the project Kiwanis Reads. Jeff Cody is going to come in on the end of the month. The Kiwanis member, I believe he's out of New York or New Jersey, does graphic design and is going to talk about some of the work he's done with for NASCAR. August 20th, of course, we have Jim Lamone, who's going to talk about servant leadership from the University of Buffalo. And for those of you that know what the paradoxical commandments are, which are the ones that, people are going to be mean to you, be nice to them anyway. Do it anyway. Often it's attributed to Mother Teresa. If you look up paradoxical commandments, Dr. Kent Keith, who wrote those when he was a student, is a friend of mine and is going to do a session for us in September. I'm waiting to confirm a date, but he's going to do a whole session on the paradoxical commandments for us. They just celebrated their 55th year and talk about how they got going and how how they were attributed to Mother Teresa. So I'll put the information in the newsletter this week. So, okay, any other questions or concerns?
Stand by, please.
All right, so we will ask everyone to have a great 4th of July weekend. Take some time, enjoy your family and friends, stay cool, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great evening, everybody.
Good evening, everybody.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
And don't go to any Harper's.